Hi everyone. On today's video we're going to be talking about the SPCC placement test and how you can do better and succeed on it. Now SPCC does publish these questions for you. These are practice questions that you can use to determine your skill to practice and probably to review. Hopefully a lot of this will be a review your math skills. So what I wanted to do today is just break down some of these questions that are on the sample test and make sure that we all have a good basis for how these questions are solved and how to get the answers on these tests without causing too much frustration. So let's start at the beginning. This first question over here is on the arithmetic sample question is 2.75 plus 0.003 plus 0.158, and that equals something. We don't know what that question is. Why is this question on the test? Well, they want to make sure that you know how to add and subtract decimals in the right manner. So let's review how to do this in case you don't remember. So first of all, let's start at the beginning. The first number is 2.75. We can write that out. The key to adding and subtracting any decimals is that we're going to want to keep the decimal points lined up. So on the second number, we're going to put the second decimal place right under the first one. And then we're going to write out the number as follows. 0.003. And then we can also add up the third decimal, which is 0.158. As long as we keep these decimals aligned in the right place, everything in this is in the right position, so we can easily add these all together. If you remember, this column is called the ones place, and there's only one number in the ones place, and that's this 2. This column right after the decimal is called the tenths place. We're going to add all those up together. We have a 7, a 0, and a 1. This column is called the hundredths place. That's with the TH at the end. In this column we have a 5, we have a 0, and another 5. This column is the thousandths place. If you want something to go in this first number, you can certainly put a 0 in there. There's nothing wrong with doing that because it keeps this number exactly the same. There's nothing wrong with putting a 0 after all the other numbers in the decimal. That's okay to do. So in this column we have a 0, a 3, and an 8, and we want to add all the columns up together. Now using your basic arithmetic skills, we can do this, and we say 3 plus 8 plus 0 is 11. And then we got to carry the 1 up here. Now when we do that, that means we're going to add an extra 1 to this column because it's carried an extra number to this second column. 5 plus 5 is 10, but then we have that 1 that we carried over here, so that's another 11. We need to once again carry the 1. 7 plus 0 plus 1 is 8. Plus that extra 1 is 9. And then that decimal has to be carried down as well. That stays in the same spot as the answer when you're adding or subtracting any decimal numbers. In the ones column we only have this 2, so we can go ahead and put the 2 here and we get the answer of 2.911, or it can be read as 2 and 911 1,000ths. And as we see, if we look back over here, that's option B, and that's the answer to that first question. Alright, so how about number 2? Well, in number 2, it's 7.86, and it's got this times symbol right here. This means we're going to multiply this decimal times this decimal. 7.86 times 4.6. A lot of people don't remember how this works, so let's go ahead and review how to multiply decimals. Let's start at the beginning. 7.86 is 7 and 86 100ths with a TH at the end. We can multiply this and then put 4.6 at the bottom. It doesn't matter if your decimals are aligned when you are multiplying or dividing fraction or decimals. So when you do this, it's okay that you have a decimal here and a decimal here. So what we're going to do then is we're just going to multiply it just like those decimals weren't here. Let's start with there, and then we can add the decimals in later when we get our answer. So remember, for multiplication we're going to start with this 6, and we're going to multiply it by this number, then this number, then this number. So 6 times 6 is 36. We put the 6 here and we carry the 3 up to the top. 6 times 8 is 48 plus 3 is 51. So we're going to carry that 5 up here. 6 times 7 is 42 plus 5 is 47. So now we have a number that looks like 4,716, and that's great, but we also have this 4 we haven't done anything with yet. Every time you multiply, starting with this second number, we're going to use a placeholder. And we're going to put that placeholder right here, and it's going to be a 0. And the reason that we do that is because this number is 10 times more than this number, so then we have to add a 0 to hold that place. Hopefully this will make sense after we do the question. Just remember to keep that spot held. So let's start with the 4. 4 times 6 is 24. And we need to carry that 2 up here. 8 times 4 is 32. Add the 2 we just carried. That's 34. Carry that 3 up here. 4 times 7 is 28. Plus 3 is 31. So now we have two numbers added together. And if you remember from basic arithmetic, we need to add these together. And so we can go ahead and do that. Say this is 6, this is 5, 7 plus 4 is 11, carry that 1, 4 plus 1 is 6, and then 3 is all that's left. So what happens with the decimals? Well, we need to count the number of places those decimals have been moved. So if we take, starting from the decimal and go over to the end, we moved 1, 2 on that first number. That's 2 places till we get to the back side of this 6. If you see at the bottom, we did the same thing here, but we only moved 1. So we moved a total of 3 places on this decimal. 1, 2, and then 3. So what we need to do is come back down here and start at the beginning. We can move that decimal 1, 2, and 3. And we would put the decimal right here. And that would give us the answer 36.156. And if we look over here, that's great because that's letter A, and that is the answer to number 2. Alright, number 3 reads 7 over 20. What does that mean? Hopefully we remember. This is a fraction, right? All a fraction really means, guys, is that we're dividing. This means 7 divided by 20, or 7/20ths. So if we took something and divided it into 20 equal pieces, and took 7 of those pieces, we'd have 7/20ths of something. How we figured this out and put this in decimal form is we do long division. And we can do that by putting the 7 in the numerator and the 20 in the denominator. We put that outside. Well, 20 doesn't go into 7, so what do? Well, back to arithmetic again, we can add a 0 at the beginning because it goes 0 times. And then we have a decimal here. This decimal means it's going to be less than 1. So we can add a couple zeros out here. And the reason that we do that is it doesn't change this 7. It's still 7.00, which is 7. So it's the same number. So we can say now 20 into 70. Well, we know that 20 times 3 is 60. So when we subtract this, we get 10. Now if you remember from your long division, we need to take the 0 and bring it down. So now we have the number 100, and 20 into 100. Well, that goes 5 times. So if we take 5 times 20, that's 100. And now we have no remainders. We're done. This is 0. So this is the answer to our question. All we got to do is remember to move this decimal up here, and we have 0.35. 7 divided by 20 is 0.35. And if we go over here, we see that letter C is correct. Number 4 is basically to identify which number is lowest of all the numbers that we have written. And we have 0.105, we have 0.501, and we have 0.015, and we have 0.15. How do we know which one of these are the least? Well, they are start with 0, so we know that place is all the same. In the ones place, we're all zeros here. So what we need to do to figure out which one is bigger is to figure out the lowest number in the tenths place. So here we see that we have a 1, a 5, a 0, and a 1. Well, this 0 is the lowest of all those. So we know that right away that this number is the lowest. And if we want to read it off all these numbers and put them in terms of thousandths, remember this place is the tenths, this place is the hundredths, and this place is the thousandths. So all these numbers are basically written in thousandths. This first one is 105 thousandths. If you wanted to write that in fraction form, it'd look like 105 over 1,000. And that would be exactly the same thing as 0.105. This number is the same thing, 501 over 1,000. This one is only 15 over 1,000. That's considerably less than 105 and considerably less than 501 and also considerably less than 150. So the answer to this question is 0.015. That's the lowest of these numbers. And that is letter C on this test. And so the final question that we're going to do on this part is number 5. All of the following are ways to write 25% of n, except which one? So 25%, right? 25%. This requires you to remember what percent means. Percent means out of 100. So this means 25 over 100. Or, when you write that in decimal form, 0.25. Now, if we look at these options, we can see that number A is 0.25n. Whenever you see a number written right next to a letter here, that means you're multiplying them together. So this is exactly what it means by 25% of n. 0.25n is 25% of n. When you have this next number, which is 25n over 100, well, that's exactly what we have written here. 25 over 100 times n, 25n over 100, that's 25% of n. 1/4 is the same thing because that's basically saying that we can reduce. We can reduce this fraction, 25 over 100, to 1/4. And you know this inherently because you know that if you have a quarter, for instance, which is 25 cents or 25% of a dollar, that it takes 4 of those to equal a dollar. So we know, just like we know that a quarter is 1/4 of a dollar, we know that 25% of n would be 1/4 of n. This last one is clearly the one that is incorrect. It says 25n, which means we're multiplying n times 25. Well, 25 does not equal 25%. Remember this, and you will know that the answer is D. That's the end of part 1. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please leave comments below, and please watch part 2 of this video, as well as some of the other videos that I've uploaded. Thanks very much.